everyone, making sure we
Hi.
look good.
Yeah.
Welcome to Dice Jailers.
What's up?
I'm Jordan,
I'm Bjorn.
and this week we are going to talk about our favorite homebrews and house rules, and maybe some of our not favorites.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that nonsense,
Lots of
Bjorn,
stuff.
how you doing, buddy?
Pretty damn good. There are ups and downs in the nerd world right now. If you're fans of Critical Role, like Jordan and
Yep.
myself, their campaign is almost over, and I've been following it for a couple years. And so I won't lie, I'm kind of bummed to see a story I love coming to an end. It's like a series finale of one of your favorite TV shows. You know it's coming, but you're not necessarily happy about it. So Um,
Yep.
looking forward to that. And then speaking of finales, our game, Jordan,
Yep.
we're heading towards the end. I just mapped it out. If we play every Sunday, which we might not, because there are a couple days in there, I don't know if people want to. We have
Yep.
at most 13 sessions left.
Oh gods,
Yeah. And
isn't
that's
that about how long our Curse of Strahd game went?
yeah, you guys went through that pretty quick. Like we
Yeah,
we fast tracked that game just for the
we
sake
sure did.
of fun. And if I run it again, I'm not going to do that. But that was also based on some people's schedules.
Right.
And then lastly, possibly the most exciting thing, 1 week from this Saturday, oops, all bards.
Yay! Yay!
It's gonna be ridiculous. 4 players, all of which you've seen on this stream before, will each be playing a bard. And these bards will come together for an adventure. And it is going to be ridiculous in the best
It's
way.
it's gonna be a
Um,
lot.
it is. It is. All characters with high charisma and bards.
Yep.
So yeah, I've been ironing out a couple things in that adventure, making sure I know how to make sure it stays within our ideal window. I don't think
Mm-hmm.
2 hours will be enough. We'll probably be closer to 3 on
Yeah,
this
so we
one.
go over.
Yeah, we'll go over a little bit, but I think anybody who tunes in, I think is going to have a really good time. I've talked to every player individually about their character, and it is going to be so ridiculous.
And apparently, I'm the only one of us that hasn't settled on a choice.
Yeah, well, yeah, but that's how you be though.
I
So
know. I think
I,
of too many ideas.
you do. I'm excited about all those things, and yeah, it's going to be absolutely great. Ooh, and I got myself a physical copy of the new Van Richtens, so I don't
Oh,
just
yeah,
have
you did.
digital. It's so good. It's a lot of fun. We'll have to do an episode, kind of think, talking about horror and all of that soon
Oh, yeah,
because
we totally should do that.
because
That'd be
this
great.
really has given me a lot of ideas for how to alter games, change campaign settings, or
Hmm.
enhance them. It's a really good book, and I would recommend it to any DM out there.
Oh,
If
yeah.
you're a player, yeah, you can lump it. Just this book's not for you.
It's definitely a DM's book. That's
It
that's for
is.
sure.
It is, but it's a book we needed. So thank you for releasing this wonderful Van Richten book. And I will stop talking and ask, what's good with you, man?
Uh, it's been a lot of a week. It was like last week. Friday after Friday after everything. My record player decided to die, which was very sad. But it has been replaced. The replacement
Good.
just got here today. It's
Ooh,
right here next to me now. It works perfectly.
good.
Shout out to a couple of my friends that sent me some funds to replace that record player because I know how near and dear to my heart it is. And then last weekend I spent so much lovely time with lovely theater people because
Nice.
I went to camp, and by
Yes, you
that I
did.
mean by that I mean 1448. Beautiful theater group here in Seattle and multiple other places internationally uh, did uh, did 1448 camp, and so it was just a bunch of us actors pretending that we're at camp virtually, which is super fun, like doing
Would you say
workshops and
you
stuff.
were
And
would you say you were acting?
not
Acting like you were
really.
at camp? I would.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just super fun. And also just to see a bunch of these people's faces
Sure.
that like I usually only ever see like during 1448. So being able to see a number of them again was just it was so good. And oh, that's right. It was a thing I was gonna do on the stream today. Shout out to our most avid fan, who Gilson, who made the cookies that we talked about the other day,
Oh,
and brought some of them over to me, and they are phenomenal.
wonderful. That is
I've
wonderful.
I've held myself to only having eaten half of them. Uh, they're so good. Uh, but yeah, and also just hanging out with a number of my friends that are now fully vaccinated, so we can hang out. And
Yes.
it's just been a lot. It's been a lot of fun.
I played D&D in person with people this past Tuesday.
Right.
It was, I forgot how different it is to not be playing over screens. That just the pacing is so much faster.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
man, I love D&D. Like there's no question about that. I forgot how much I love being at the same table as people. It's it's the best. And yeah, my Tuesday group, we're going to be gathering in person now for every session until one of our players moves this July. So we get to actually be together and keep playing. And shit, that was great.
It's so good. I mean, yeah, it's just been nice to see people in person a little bit again, as we're getting to people being vaccinated against this pandemic and being able to be people again.
But it's good.
It's wild.
Being able to see people, either they come to your place, you go to theirs. You got to make sure like maybe is this a shoes on place? Is it a shoes off place? Do you have to BYOB? Maybe they're a dry household. You don't know. You got to find out what the rules are before you go to the house.
You've got to figure out the rules of that house. Yes.
Yes, the house rules are important.
Yes, and before we start that's a segue, riding on it like Paul Blart. Now, before we talk about our favorite homebrews and house rules and things that go well and badly, we should probably talk about what in the nine hells those are.
Well, my favorite thing about them for D&D in particular is everything you do in essence started as a house rule.
Yeah.
Like a lot of these, were popular rules that came through playtesting, or shoot, the people who came up with them did them in their own home games. These are the rules that you put into the game as a DM usually and say, okay, I know the rule as written is this, but I play it this way.
And that works for any game. Like, how many times have you played Monopoly?
You don't play it right.
All of the luxury tax goes to just sit on free parking.
Yep.
And the next person to land on free parking gets that. It's technically a house rule,
yeah.
Although in some versions of Monopoly now it's a real rule.
Most people do not know that in Monopoly, when you land on a property, if you don't buy it, it immediately goes to auction and all other players get to bid. An actual game of Monopoly played by the rules as written should only take about an hour. And that is a great example, because there have been so many house rules done for so long that so many people just
know them as the real rules.
Yeah, they play it the way they've experienced it. Nobody who buys a game of Monopoly, for the most part, takes out the rules and reads it. They go, oh, I know how to play.
And like Uno. Uno is one of the most house-ruled games in all of board games.
It is.
Because I don't care what the makers tweet, I am stacking those draw fours. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. I will play that way all day, every day. Just like, nope, you can stack draw fours. I don't give a shit. Draw 12, motherfucker. That's 3 cards out.
But yeah, it's the way of playing the game that is not the rules as they were written. And sometimes this can, I think, greatly enhance or improve a game. And there are some that it's not for me. And maybe for other people. We'll get into some of those. Like I would say this is not one I play by, but I know a very common house rule for many people with D&D is that a 20 is always a success and a 1 is always a failure. And many people think that's a rule. That's a rule in combat when you're making an attack,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a rule for a skill check
It is
or a
not.
saving throw. You just do
Yep.
the math.
You can nat 20 on a saving throw and still fail it
You
because you're
certainly
just
can.
really not dexterous.
Yep. You could have a -1 in that. Your 20 could become a 19, and you could find out the save was 21. And
Yep.
there can be cases where there's no way you can make the save.
Mm-hmm.
Like it can actually happen that way.
And the part of the reason why a lot of people rule in that natural 20 is just a success is because it's fun and it's exciting and it's cool to be like, I'm really bad at this, but one time I'm real good.
Right. So that's a very common house rule. It can, I think, be used well. You have to have a gentle hand because it can get out of control. If you
Yep.
say, no matter what, it will be a success, then you can have the bard walking up to an emperor going, you'll give me your entire empire. I'm going to make a persuasion check. And they roll a 20. And they're like, well, can I have the scepter now? And so
Yeah.
there's a balance.
You have to temper those moments.
Yeah.
And that's really the essence of a house rule or something that's homebrewed in, especially when you're talking about tabletop games, is that it's all to make it more fun.
Correct.
Like there was a rule that I used to have that I would use running games that I had to amend because I never used it with a higher level party before.
Sure.
And I really liked it. It was at lower levels, if you don't move, you can get one more strike with your weapon in your attack action.
Okay.
So even if you don't have a second attack, if you don't move, if you're just locked in combat with that person, you can take an extra attack using your move action.
Right.
And I liked that until people got up into higher levels because I didn't specify. I didn't specify like, no, that's not a whole attack action. That's just one single strike.
Right, right. It's like having haste.
Exactly. But like that's one that I've used for a while, and I've flopped back and forth on whether whether I'm going to keep it normally in my games or not. But like once I do it in a game, it stays in that game. Or if I don't do it in a game, it stays in that game. It stays out of that game.
A really fun house rule from a campaign I played in for a short time. Our DM, he's a big anime fan, and he wanted the idea of a character to be able to have this mega attack at some point.
Right.
This is mega. This is massive. It's going to do,
it's your
all the awesome. Yeah. And so the way he did it was he was very good about awarding inspiration. I'm not. I will say as a DM, I'm actually very bad about it. But he was very good about it. And at the end of every session, he would also have what he called the inspiration circle, where players would say moments in the session that they thought a player deserved inspiration for. Well, he quickly realized we would get inspiration and sometimes not get a chance to use it. So the way it worked is your inspiration could stack. And after you had an inspiration point, however many points of inspiration you had, you could, and he called it will, like, it's your overall strength of will.
Right.
And his intent, the way he said it worked, is anytime you make an attack or saving throw, anytime you would roll a d20, you can choose to expend your will total instead. And your will total capped at 20. Meaning, if you waited until you had those 20 points, you could decide, I'm expending my will. And you could auto crit.
Right.
And I thought it was really cool because it had this idea of like, okay, maybe I don't want to spend those points. Maybe I want to hang on to it. And you could eventually reach a moment where there's only one try to do something. And you look at your will and maybe your character with proficiency in athletics and a high strength. And your bonus is a +8. And you look at your will and you've got 15 will. And you really quickly go, that's 23. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to expend my will to all but guarantee success on something. And I thought it added a really fun wrinkle to the game.
That is kind of cool. I know there's another one because that's kind of a thing that people will do homebrewing a lot to basically use up these features in the game that aren't often used, so they're more spectacular.
Right.
One that we came up with for a game, the game that I used to co-run before I just got too busy and I couldn't, uh, was the every time that you roll a nat 1, like, yes, it sucks because you crit fail, but you keep a
Right.
tally mark of that, and that became like a fail point,
Okay.
and you could spend those fail points to get different things, like to buy like different amounts were different things, but like to buy proficiency in a skill,
Well, that's
or
cool.
buy, or like eventually with a lot of them you could buy a feat, or you could buy another language. And the idea it came from was like learning from your failures.
So it's kind of like the advantage drawback system that's in like
Exactly, that's in
Pathfinder.
Pathfinder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, where you can go, okay, I'm going to have this negative to my character, but because I took that, I now get this bonus. That's really
Mm-hmm.
cool because rolling a natural one always sucks.
Yeah.
Um, and
And
that's
it's just purely off of like, well, I roll a lot of ones for some reason, but now I
yeah,
have 4 feats and I'm level 5.
yeah, like that takes a lot of the sting out of it. We're going, okay, I've rolled all these ones, but now I get a bonus because of that. I
Yeah.
think that's very cool, and I could see how that would work. I don't know that I would
Yeah.
incorporate it into a game I run, and that's only because I I like to muck with so many little things in the
Mm-hmm.
story that would just fuck me up. But that's fun.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting one that we took a lot of time debating what the point values were going to be worth.
Yeah.
Because it's that was also one of the nat 1 rollingest games I have ever been a part of. Like we rolled one so many times.
I do want to hit pause on talking about things we like, just because you're talking about this. I want to talk about a house rule I've seen many people talk about. I've seen many people adopt, and I
Mm.
hate it like fire, and
Mm-hmm.
to be burned and scatter the ashes. And that is the crit fumble table.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Uh, and oftentimes there's a crit success table to go with these, where you roll the nat 20 and then you roll percentile dice to see what happens because of it. And same thing
Yeah.
with rolling a nat 1. Now, I know this was likely birthed from like 3 and 3 5,
Yeah.
where you would roll, if you rolled a 20 and you crit, the DM would then say, okay, roll to
Confirm your crit.
and I would say, I did. There's a 20 showing. I confirm. And I always hated the confirm your crit. I'm so glad it's gone. Um, least favorite rule of all time. Least favorite. Like, not even a
Fair.
close second. Hate it, hate it, hate it. But the idea that, okay, I roll a 20. Sweet. Now I grab these percentile dice and I roll them. And you can get things all the way up to like insta killing, like even boss stuff.
Yeah.
But to me, as a DM, that says, well, this should work against my players as well. And now you reach an uncomfortable area where you're like insta killing players because as a DM, you're rolling more dice.
Yep.
So I hate that. And then the crit fail table, I mean, you already rolled a 1. Your attack is wasted and it misses. But I remember when that could cause you to drop your weapon
Mm-hmm.
back in 3 and 3 5, because there were locking gauntlets you could buy
Yep.
where you had to basically confirm your fail to
Yup.
see
And
if you
then
dropped
and
your
like
sword.
and there were combat maneuvers to disarm people that happened way more often. And
There
I do
were.
think I do think that's a thing that Fifth should bring back, is combat maneuvers. Because like, yes, it makes it more complicated, but also then you don't have like the kind of hard to find grapple rules.
Yeah, I on that note, I will say I'm really happy that when Tasha's came out, we basically got that feat where you could get some of those battle master
Mm-hmm.
abilities. The fact that there's just straight up a fighting style where you can get a battle master ability.
Yeah.
I really enjoy that any class through feats, which is an optional rule, but
Yep.
I don't know why you wouldn't use them. They're so fun. I like that
Right.
any class can now get some of those, and still, if you are a battle master, you get so many more than anyone else. You get
Yeah.
bigger and better superiority dice that the battle master to me does not feel diminished at all,
Mm-hmm.
and others can have those like disarming attacks and whatnot.
Yep.
Because I'm with you, there were so many things you could do in like 3.3.5 or even in a system like Pathfinder
Yeah.
that you just can't in fifth.
And there are a lot of DMs that homebrew and or house rule in those things back using the same old calculations from 3.5
Right.
and from Pathfinder, and just bringing them into 5th edition and being like, okay, well, this is what your combat maneuver would be if combat maneuver was a thing.
Right. And I think those things can be okay to bring in if you really want to. Like I said, myself, I hate crit success and crit fumble tables. Um, I don't think they go good as often as they go bad. And also,
Mm-hmm.
I hate the idea of implementing a system of called shots where it's like, okay, I'm going to go for a headshot. And if you crit on that, it's going to be basically an auto kill. Again, I'm
Mm-hmm.
going, as a DM, then why wouldn't all my monsters always go for headshots? I'm going to crit eventually, and all the
Mm-hmm.
players are going to die, and the story's over, and it's boring. And some could say, well, then as a DM, don't use those abilities. And I go,
Like, but
but
if they're there,
yeah,
why
like
would the enemies not use them?
exactly. So I think balance is hard. If you now, I would say if you are playing a campaign, I say my tone is kind of somewhere in between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones in terms of
Yeah.
seriousness and danger to characters. If you're playing a campaign that's more like the video game Gauntlet, where you're just tearing through hordes of stuff left and right, and it's just mega hack and slash, which I am not knocking that. I love hack and slash campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think the crit success table belongs. That's
Yep.
where I think the called shot belongs, where you're like, you know what? We're going to give all these bonuses to the players of what they're doing because we want them to feel like gods from level one.
Yep.
And they're going to fight stuff way outside their weight class at lower levels because they have all these cool abilities. And I'm
See,
down with
now
that.
I really like using called shots, but I have shifted my table of what can happen on called shots
Sure.
to be different than a couple of the more popular ones that you can find floating around the internet, where basically like you take disadvantage to the attack for
Okay.
aiming at a particular spot,
Sure.
but like head deals crit damage,
Okay.
uh arm gives disadvantage to the next attack
Okay.
for whoever gets hit. Leg halves their speed,
Okay.
and that's it. And it's very simple, but it's just a little extra called shot to be able to do a little something something, but you have to give yourself disadvantage to try to do it.
I kind of like that. If I were to implement it, I know the way I would go. The kind of called shots I would want, I don't want called shots of head, arm, leg, and all of those. I want called shots that you use the environment. So maybe you go, okay, I'm going to take out my dagger and I'm going to throw it at the rope that's holding the chandelier. And, I want the chandelier to fall on this guy. That's the kind of called shots
Oh,
I want.
oh yeah, I'm definitely into adding environmental things into combat.
Yeah.
That'd be really cool if they did a primer on those kind of things.
I would
That'd be
love to see
nice.
some of that. I would love to see just
Because
a
who doesn't want to drop a chandelier on their enemies and ride the rope up? Like,
right either that or if you're playing a game where there's you're at sea or it's a pirate campaign, who doesn't want to be Captain Blood and take out the dagger and
yup,
ride it down the sail? Like
yup.
that's just cool. So yeah, I like the idea of using the environment, but again, those success and fumble tables and called shots, I'm not personally a fan. I'm really iffy about how well I think they can be implemented. But again, this is where it comes into talking to your players and making sure
Absolutely.
everyone's on the same page. Because the most important thing, where even where I say I don't like it, I have spoken with groups who use them, and everyone involved say, "Oh, it's the most fun. We
Mm,
love it." And I go, "Man, you guys are all at the right table."
yeah. I do know of one house rule in particular, and I think we should shift very soon to talking about specifically homebrewing things.
Yeah.
But there's one house rule in particular that I know of that I've seen so common that I have not heard of anyone liking,
Okay.
and that's this one only works if you're playing a tabletop that has experience points rather than milestone leveling.
Why would you do this?
Uh, I don't know. Some people like experience points.
I hate experience points.
Personally, I don't because I don't like doing all those extra calculations. But that's just me. Some people like it for the extra, like letting people see how close they are to leveling and stuff like that.
Sure.
I get that, but it's the house rule of the person who gets the kill
Nope.
gets the experience.
I'm out.
It is the worst house rule that I keep seeing people online try, and no one has ever enjoyed it. You know why? Because it gives your cleric and your bard the biggest middle finger.
Yes. And the thing is, your cleric and your bard are probably the reason those other characters got those kills.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. We went when we went over classes, we talked about this. The cleric and the bard, 5e is a love letter to those two classes.
Mm-hmm.
I love both classes, but they're going to get very few kills overall. And if you tie the experience to who gets the kill, it's not going to take long before your barbarian is level 14, your cleric is level 3, and wizards are so terrible at level 1, they're never going to get any of the
never
cool
going to get away
stuff.
from level 1, yeah.
Yeah. So dumb.
And I had to mention it on this show because it's so bad.
I
and
hate
people
it.
keep fucking trying it. No. Why? Like it's so bad. And yes, exactly. Just from the chat. Yes, it creates competition within the party, which is never good.
Correct. You should be working together.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it. You're an adventuring party. You're a group. This is also why I don't allow PvP at my table.
Mm-hmm.
Because with some rare exceptions, I have never seen a game with PvP go well.
Yeah. I've only seen it go well occasionally, and that PvP was full of I'm not mad at you, my character is, I'm sorry.
Yes. Like the kind of, and I use PvP in quotes here, that I'm fine with is I kick his foot to make him trip himself while he's walking. Yep. That's funny. I tie his shoelaces together. Cool. That's great.
Slapstick gets a pass.
It does. Slapstick will always get a pass. If you're like, I'm gonna cup check him. Okay, and if that's successful, I'll be like, all right, you take 1 point of bludgeoning damage.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'll go. Once it gets into, oh, I'm gonna steal his sword while he's sleeping. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not. The closest I will allow with that is if one character finds this treasure hoard and they're like, I'm gonna put all that in my bag of holding and I'm not telling anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, I can't disallow that because I don't have control over your personal morals, but that may come up and be an issue. But also when the other characters find out, I won't allow them to just kill that character. It's like,
right.
Make it interesting. Yeah. Now you mentioned one that is very common that never works. I want to, for the last house rule thing, I want to mention one that we use that is very popular, that I see used almost everywhere because it does work well. Drinking a potion is a bonus action.
Yep.
I know there are a couple people who hate it because they say it's too hard to die in 5th edition. 5th edition
it's
is
not.
It's not. It's not too hard to die. And I will say this, the death saves mechanic is so awesome because it can be intense. Our artificer on Tuesday, thankfully, one of us was able to get to him to stabilize him because getting close to his turn again, and he had 2 successes and 2 failures.
There's nothing more stressful than that moment.
Or I would say equally stressful when you have one failure and if I roll a one,
I'm
it's
dead.
over because that's two fails. I
Hmm.
love the death saves system. I think it is great. I love it way better than the old bleeding out from 3 and 3.5.
Yeah.
Those were okay, but no, leave that in the past.
Yeah. Bleeding out
I
was
love.
fine, but it was too many calculations, and just
Yep.
give me a few flat numbers
Yeah.
so we can
I
speed things up.
yeah.
Like we talked
But I
about
love
last week, speeding things
exactly.
up.
And but I love the whole drinking a potion as a bonus action, particularly because nothing sucks more if you're a martial class. You can attack 2, 3, 4 times, and because you're getting some lumps put on you, drinking that potion was your whole action. Come on,
Ah, yeah.
yeah, it's no. Let it be a bonus action. It doesn't affect the game that much, and it actually makes it more interesting and more fun. So,
And
yeah,
most likely, you're gonna forget to drink that potion
if
because
it's a heal,
you're gonna forget that you have a potion.
if it's a healing potion, you will forget to drink it until you're so low on hit points that it's not going to make that much of a difference. The
Yep.
only potions you're going to remember is if you have like a potion of haste or a potion of maximum power. You'll remember that crap.
Or if you literally eat a mote of haste.
Yeah,
I love it so much.
it's amazing. But
That's a Critical Role reference from last week.
it is, and it was a great moment.
Oh,
But
I love it.
yeah, I love drinking a potion yourself as a bonus action. Feeding it to
Yep.
someone else, that's an action.
That takes
But
effort, but
yeah, but the idea that you would take this small thing, pop the cork, chug it back real quick, yeah, bonus action, no
like
problem.
you know how quickly people can take shots.
Exactly. It's like I can take a shot and then punch somebody. Now, if it's me doing the punching, I'm going to regret that because when they punch back, that's where everything ends because that's where I'm going to fall down.
That
So
yeah, that's why you got to learn to dodge.
yeah, yeah, I'm not very good at that either. I used to do kickboxing, and let me tell you, I can catch every punch with my face.
Yep. I mean, which not the best way to catch it, but
Nope,
10 out of
nope,
10.
nope, exactly, exactly. But I
So,
know my limitations, and that's
yeah.
important.
So let's talk about homebrewing things because
Oh,
you have been
yes.
doing a lot of that specifically for our game,
Yeah.
as well as homebrewing an entire world for our
Yes.
upcoming game.
So, the biggest homebrew I actually want to talk about is homebrewing monsters because I homebrew
Hmm.
more of those than anything else. And the most simple way to homebrew a monster for me is I will sometimes either flip through the monster manual or Volos or Mordenkainen's, take your pick,
Hmm.
and I'll just look at stuff that looks fun and think to myself, how can I incorporate that into the game? Or I might just turn to a random page, throw my finger down, and see what it lands on, and try and figure out how will I incorporate that.
Yep.
Because I might realize, I haven't really used a whole lot of dragons. Now, in our campaign, I have used dragons
Yep.
because I love dragons. But if you have players who know a lot about the game or are DMs, you're a
Hmm.
DM, Phoenix is a
Yeah.
DM.
Phoenix is a DM.
I have two DMs at my table. So if I run a monster as written, there's a chance they're very familiar with it. There's a chance they're using it in their campaign. So
Hmm.
what's just simple and fun to do, change a few things. If it's a dragon, change how its breath weapon works.
Hmm.
Um, change some of its resistances.
Yep.
In the
Make.
monster manual, it gives you a breakdown of how to make a Dracolich, which is it's just an undead dragon,
Yep.
but it gives you the template of how to do that or how to do a shadow dragon. And that's the
And I
most
think
powerful.
that's one of the coolest things that they did in 3.5 for Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 edition is that they they gave the players all of the templates for how they balance things
Yeah.
at Wizards, and
Yep.
so and that's part of why there are so many websites like the D&D 3.5 wiki, for example, has
Yes.
just huge forums of so many things that are homebrewed because it was made easily done and still relatively balanced. Now, people didn't keep them balanced
No, no.
because people are greedy and want their favorite baby pet project to be better than everyone's. But technically, the balancing should have been there.
But on that note, this is part of what I appreciate about D&D Beyond is people can share their homebrew creations on there.
Yes.
You can find some very interesting stuff. Um,
Oh,
and
and to
honestly,
mention, sorry to cut in.
oh,
To
please.
mention, unlike a house rule, which is changing something about a base rule in the game, homebrewing is specifically creating things in the game. So, like, we're talking objects, items, creatures,
Yes.
as opposed to changing how rules work.
Yeah.
And that's why there are the two different categories. Is homebrewing is making a thing, house ruling is changing a rule.
Yeah. And like for a homebrew item as an example was when you guys encountered the necromancer who had been antagonizing you for the majority of the campaign. You all had this collective moment of horror during the first round of combat when you learned he had 2 reactions per round. He could both counterspell and cast shield. And you all understandably, when I used the second reaction, went, well, no, he can't do that. He counterspelled. And I simply said, he gets 2 reactions. And you all just went, oh no. And it was because I had created this homebrew magic item. I mean, ridiculously powerful. I took some notes from Serac from Tomb of Annihilation, a little bit of Hallister Blackcloak of Dungeon of the Mad Mage. I took some notes from just the Lich stat block to build this character. And then for his staff, I started with the Staff of the Forgotten One and worked from there. And I basically thought, how do I make this guy so powerful that he can fight 5 high-level adventurers by himself and hold his own? And okay,
and he
legendary.
sure fucking did.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Now, there was a DM error. I used Global Vulnerability wrong where I moved with it.
Yes, you did.
But you know what? Nobody else at the table caught it, and I've seen it. We've seen it happen on Critical Role twice. So
that's because who uses that fucking spell?
Anybody who can take it should. That spell's amazing because shut your asses down if you couldn't cast magic. It was great.
Yeah, but also we shouldn't have been able to move to get out of the way of our monk's fists.
I mean, yeah, I digress.
That's the balance of that spell. But
it is.
But that could be a really, really mean homebrew spell.
It can. It can.
You knock it up a few levels in spell level and make it mobile. Oh no.
It's great. It's delicious. But I made this item and I used some of those bits and pieces from various other stat blocks. And by doing that, I created a monster my players weren't prepared for. They got surprised by it. And the best thing is, we still talk about that combat.
Oh, yeah.
I think we're going to talk
Always
about that.
will.
Yeah, we'll talk about it for years to come because it was exciting and it was intense. And you guys had a blast, as did I. And so that's the joy of homebrew is you can use it to enhance the game. There's a great one-shot, Planet of the Tarrasques.
Yep.
Where it has a bunch of different Tarrasque modifications. And holy shit, some of them are ridiculous. But it's just fun. So yeah, I love homebrew, and I love that Volo's Guide to Monsters in particular has a really good template of how to alter a lot of these creatures, particularly how to make your own beholder.
Yes, which that's super fun. And I think there's a thing that has been a through line talking about homebrews that I should just plain straight out mention is that one of the easiest ways to homebrew a thing is start with something. Start with something that already exists and add another piece of something that already exists to it. And of course, when you're making items, as was mentioned in the chat, when making items, you have to be sure that you don't make something so powerful that once the party gets it, it's ridiculous. Unless you make it a cursed item, you fucking bastard.
Cursed items are great.
You
Um,
just make it a goddamn cursed item, and then all the casters want to take that big ass wizard staff off of the almost lich that we killed, and
yep,
then we can't use it.
you could. Um,
No, we
there's
can't. I don't want to have to kill my party member.
like you could have tried to, but there was just a chance that it was going to take your body over, steal your soul, and make you try and return it to its owner. So
no, thank you. No, thank
yeah,
you.
yeah. Love that stuff.
But yeah, if you make an item that's really, really good that you don't want your party to have, but you want an enemy to have, just make it cursed.
Yep. And make a contingency on the curse that if the curse is lifted, the item is destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Just just do that.
It's just mean.
It is.
It makes sense because we should never have that kind of power, but
No.
mean.
No. I do feel like 5e did a really good job encouraging dungeon masters to homebrew magic items. And
I agree.
biggest reason I think this is when you look through the Dungeon Master's Guide and you look at the magic items that are in there, there is only one magical bow, and that is the Oath Bow. That's it.
Yep.
I mean, some could say, well, no, you get like, weapons of +1, 2, and 3, or a weapon of warning can be anything. And I'll say that's true, but look at all the different kinds of swords.
Yeah, like
exist.
all the other swords, like all the swords have like specific magic items for swords, as opposed to bows that don't.
Yeah, and I've seen people online that are new DMs going, "Hey, this kind of sucks. Does anybody know about other magical bows? Because there's a ranger in my party, and the ranger uses a bow because rangers like to use bows. Because
sure do.
If I play a ranger, I'm using a damn bow. Like that's just how it be."
Yeah.
And they go, I don't know what to do, or shoot, there's no crossbows, and people
there really aren't any specific crossbows either.
And people will just give the response of, well, if you want to make it really simple, take the Flame Tongue or the Frost Brand, those swords, apply those bonuses to a bow or a crossbow. Just do it.
See, I just go to either a different edition of D&D or to Pathfinder, and take one of their specific bows and just shift it a little to make it fit in 5e.
Yeah, just do a little tweak on it, and find ways to make it work. I think a fun thing that can be done with homebrew, and this comes a little bit from Matt Mercer's whole Vestiges of Divergence, where they have their dormant, awakened, exalted states. You can do something really cool where, because a lot of characters, particularly martial classes, I'm big on this. The player decides their character has a signature weapon. This is what they fight with. And so
it's like what you did for my character's swords for our campaign. Because my character has these dual long swords that he would use that are family heirlooms.
Yep.
And they've gotten more powerful over the campaign. And it's really you just homebrewed in different like additions to the scabbard or additions to the hilt that then change them into more powerful long swords.
Yeah, because you're what now? It's a sword of answering and a defender, I believe.
Yes, and for a while it was the Flame Tongue and the Frost Brand.
Yeah.
And it's and that was a great little homebrew to keep my character's like family heirloom swords still useful.
Yeah.
But I had to still like search out and find things like you would need to search out and find a new magic item, and then it just upgraded my swords into magic items that already exist, but they're just still my swords.
And I think a good way of thinking up how to do some of that homebrew stuff, a lot of us are really familiar with like playing RPGs as video games. Final Fantasy will be my go-to example for this.
Absolutely.
It's the most successful franchise, and there are a lot of good games there. But when you look at it, using like Final Fantasy X, for example, Tidus is always going to use a one-handed sword.
Yep.
Orin will always use a two-handed sword. Waka always uses a ball of some sort.
Yep.
And so making sure that you create these items of the type either that your player is going to use or have a way that their starting weapon can be augmented and changed over the course of the campaign. So it gets better and stronger. So if you have a character that basically goes, well, my barbarian uses a great axe, you don't go, but here's this amazing great sword. And they're like, I don't use swords, I use axes. Like you can keep making it fun for your player. And
Yeah.
like you'll hear the term of, reskin X to make Y. Shoot, if you read a pre-written
Do
adventure,
that all the time.
yeah, you see a magical item, you're going, wow, that looks really cool. Oh, but that's a sword, and our fighter uses a battle axe. Make it a
Just
damn
make it an
battle
axe.
It's like that's the easiest reskin. It's a D8 versatile, so it's a D10 if you use two hands. Just change it. Just change it.
Yeah.
Like those are the kind of ones that are really easy to change. Just change the base item type and keep all the cool stuff underneath. And what's great is if you have players that don't read a lot of the other adventures, they're going to think you're so clever coming up with this stuff. Like, wow, how did you come up with this? Just don't say a damn thing.
Say, oh, I just, made it up.
Yeah.
Because I thought it fit.
Exactly.
So yeah, say that like a liar.
Best way to do things. When you expand on home brewing, going from items to monsters, when you're getting into entire worlds, there is a thought, and this is primarily like new DMs. They'll go, I'm going to do an entire campaign, pure homebrew. I'm going to create my world from scratch, from ground up, write all of its history, and that's great.
That's ambitious.
It is. Steal like hell.
Oh,
from
yeah.
literature, from movies, from video games, from history. Steal, steal, steal. And you'll get people who will
like
go,
a broke level 1 rogue.
Yeah, do it. Because you'll get folks who will go, oh, but I don't want my players to think I'm not creative when they realize this is just, a ripoff of The Hobbit. And I say, here's what's going to happen. They'll realize, they're like, wait a minute, is this from The Hobbit? And don't get sheepish. Just kind of smile and nod at them and be like, yeah, you figured it out. That player is going to feel kind of cool. And if it's something that all your players are into, and if you're into fantasy and you're not into The Hobbit, I don't understand you.
Yeah, who are you if you, that confuses me.
That book
all
is
you youngins.
But
for our giant young fan base that we definitely have.
We do. So yeah. Maybe they're TikToks. Did I say it right? I don't know.
Sure did, Dad.
I don't know. I'm almost 40. I don't know these things. I can't. I don't know this shit. I don't pay attention. But yeah, be willing to take from those things, especially if you know your players are into certain things. If you're a DM and your players are your friends as well, which I highly recommend playing with your friends. This is a great game to play with friends. And hey, almost everybody here is really, really into Star Wars. Just throw in something that's just an obvious Star Wars reference.
Or just play the Star Wars tabletop.
You could do that too. Yeah. You could also do that.
You definitely should do that. And if you do,
it's a good system.
Don't let any of your players play as a Jedi or a Sith, because it's hilarious to watch them flounder.
Yeah. Also, if you are gonna run a game, let me know. I have a couple characters ready to go. I'd like to play. So
I have a few droids that I've made that I would like to do.
I have a fun bounty hunter I'd like to play. So yeah.
Yep.
But having those things that your friends are going to key in on and enjoy, and don't be afraid to lean into those classic tropes that we all love. Is your party, largely criminal, have shady underground connections? Then baby, it's time for a heist. Go ahead, rewatch Ocean's 11, take some notes and go, we're having a heist, baby.
Yep. Go
Or
full Ocean's 11. Go Harlem Nights.
do it, do it.
Oh my
Or
god. Do it.
or heck, if you're doing a setting where there can be, something like a train, or it can be a wagon train, have a good old fashioned train robbery. Like,
Oh yeah, buddy.
because who doesn't love those things?
Like
It's great.
Magitech train heist,
Yeah.
stagecoach heist.
Or
Like
or if we're talking about stagecoaches, maybe you're on that stagecoach and you have to defend it,
mm-hmm.
like in the movie Stagecoach.
Or like and there's when we're talking about homebrewing worlds, there is one thing that I want to that I want to bring up to caution.
Yep.
Is that everyone wants to play a pirate campaign. As a DM, it is very hard to corral a pirate campaign. Even if you're homebrewing your own world, even if you're homebrewing the entire campaign story, it is very, very difficult to corral a group of players that are allowed to be pirates.
Yes.
So just know that going in, that all of your planning will be for nothing, and be ready for that.
Now, I want to speak on that. I'm gonna lean in a little bit for this one. So
oh,
this
he's
is
getting serious.
I'm very serious. This is for anybody who's like home brewing, and particularly with those like pirates or folks that might be a little more chaotic, and you're worried about them going off the rails and not following the plot. This is the life hack for it.
Yep.
Wherever they go, insert the plot there.
Mm-hmm.
If the thing you wanted them to do, if the MacGuffin, if it was over here in this tower, but they're going to go to these caves, take all of that and you put them in the damn caves. Just do it.
Yep.
Because they can't see your notes. They don't know what you've written. If they're in a dungeon and there's a door, nothing exists behind that door until you tell them it's there. Thank you, dungeon dudes. I stole that from you guys. But that's one of the things to do when you're homebrewing also, of, oh, I created this thing and it's so amazing and I want to show it off, and they don't go to where it is. Friggin' move it.
Yeah. That is definitely one big thing with homebrewing campaigns, is that don't let your baby that you've created be super precious.
Yeah.
Because it's going to have to change, it's going to have to move. As far as items, however, let that item be precious to you. If it's an important item, let it be precious to you, because that means you're going to do your best to balance it. However, your monsters, I mean, they're gonna probably die, so don't get too attached.
No. And this is coming as somebody who, the necromancer that we mentioned earlier that they fought, who thankfully for me had a clone spell, and so he's still out there somewhere. I know he's not likely to make it out of this campaign, because if these players find him, they're going to kill him.
And they sure are. Oh my god.
But come to terms with yourself as a DM with those things. I take a lot of pride in the fact that my players want to end this antagonist. To me, that means I created a good antagonist.
Sure,
and if they do find him, and if they do end him permanently, there will be no nonsense of like, oh, no, he's still out there because stupid ass reasons.
You mean like his goddamn clone?
That wasn't a stupid reason. He was an epic level wizard. He had a
I know it's a legitimate thing in the game, but I'm so mad he's not dead.
He had an intelligence of 24.
I know it makes sense, and it's all good within the rules, but I want him dead.
Yep. But you guys did destroy his staff, which was a huge source of power for him. Mm-hmm. So he's diminished. And that's another thing I would speak on is, and this is less a homebrew thing, but I'm using it because it's my own created character and created item. Make sure victories for your players aren't hollow when they beat a huge nemesis or a big badass monster. They can not completely win, like this case with the clone spell. Make sure there's some victory for them, though, because nothing's worse than expending a ton of effort to get the victory and really find out it was for nothing,
Yep.
it doesn't instill you with a whole lot of enthusiasm to continue the story. When you know, oh, he's wounded, he's still out there, but he's wounded, and if we find him, we can finish him. That's something.
Yeah. 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 Yep. Yep. I want him dead. I want him dead. I want his family dead.
um, but yeah, like I said, for homebrew, there's so much out there. And again, don't be afraid for your homebrew doesn't have to be built from the ground up. You
No.
can you can simply have the the Arctic arc or whatever the hell you want to call it, and it's a longbow, and that bow does extra cold damage, and you use the exact same stats as the Frostbrand sword. But I'll tell you this: if you have a dexterity fighter who uses a bow, or a ranger who uses a bow, and they find that Arctic arc or whatever better name you come up with for it, they're going to be
not gonna give a
so
shit.
excited. No, they're going to be excited.
They're not gonna give a damn like if it's just a reskin of another thing.
Nope.
It's a magic item for me. I want
Yes.
it.
Yes. And
Uh,
that's I think is where to deviate a little bit from some of those random treasure tables sometimes.
yeah,
Throw in something for at least one of your players in every treasure.
absolutely. Like every treasure hoard, you want to give at least one thing for your players in particular. Like just one thing for one of them.
Yeah.
And that can also come with a lot of fun at low levels with nonsense magic items, if that makes sense. Like
Yep.
homebrew in your own weird magic items, because there are like if you search through Reddit and search through other forums, you will find lists and lists of tables of just nonsense magic items that people have made. There was one that was found that is probably the funniest dumb magic item that I've ever seen in my life. It is a small statue that appears to be modeled after the Thinker. And once per day, after speaking the code word, which you can make it whatever you want,
Yep.
The statue emits a light grunting sound, and out of the backside of the statue come 4 links of sausage. That each link of sausage is sustenance for 1 medium-sized creature for the day.
But you got to be willing to eat it.
Yep. And like it's just like nonsense homebrewed in magic items like that are so fun because yes, it does have a useful quality to it where like you have food for 4 medium-sized creatures for the day, but it is a poop statue.
Yep.
And that also gives you the fun of as the DM of like every time that they camp and in the morning you just, all right, so is anyone gonna use the statue? Yeah, Elanai or whatever the code word is, and then and your sausage is created. And just the fun weirdness of that.
Yeah.
Like there's a, like an official magic item that I heavily hope that people draw inspiration from because it's personally my favorite actual nonsense magic item that is canon, and that is the Hat of Vermin.
Hat of Vermin is so good.
It's such a good, weird, kind of nonsense magic item.
Yep.
That I highly suggest that people like look at and take from and use it for their own magic items because like your players are going to find weird ways to use the little things you have.
And that's a great point. The silly items, the ones that actually don't seem to have that much use, your
like
players,
the Wand of Smiles.
yeah, your players will come up with a use for it. They will. They'll have the stupid ass Wand of Smiles, and one of them, it'll be the Bard, because they have the high enough persuasion, will go, you know what? I bet I can make you smile, and you have to pay for our lodging for the night. And no, and they Wand of Smiles, and if that NPC fails it, now they have. I mean, that's off the top of my head, but you can come up with great uses for so many just stupid ass items.
Absolutely. Like the Hat of Vermin is a canon magic item.
Yep.
That just you take off the hat and some small animal just pops out of it
Yep.
and runs in a random direction.
Yes, it tries to get away from you as fast as possible.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a shenanigans item. It really
Yeah.
is. But sometimes it can be used to distract a guard.
It can. It absolutely can. It is a ridiculous item, and I love it. So yeah, your homebrew items, they don't have to be, the great acts of world splitting. Though, if you want to make the great acts of world splitting, I highly encourage it.
Yeah, I want to talk about how you decide to make the great acts of world splitting because that sounds
Yeah,
fun.
it does. It does. So yeah, have ones that are relevant to your players of where they're at.
Mhm.
If you're going to make the great acts of world splitting, they should really be high level at that point, unless it's actually the great acts of world splitting because there was a typo and it was supposed to be the great acts of word splitting, and it does double damage to books.
Yep. It does double damage to eloquence bards.
Yeah, it does. It does. Just like have fun with it.
And that is really the heart of homebrewing and wanting to homebrew, is because you want to have some weird fun thing that you enjoy in your game. And you should absolutely do that. Just grab from other things that already exist so it's easier for you to balance.
Yeah, I mean, and granted, I realize he's the guy who created the damn game, but Gary Gygax, one of the first homebrew things, because it was something he created for his home game that was released to the public, was the original Tomb of Horrors.
Mm-hmm.
Tomb of Horrors was from his game. Like,
yeah. Like, technically,
all
he
homebrew.
came up with the game, but that story was just his homebrew.
It's all homebrew. So come up with your own stuff. Feel free to change stuff a little bit here and there. And honestly, I think the best way to do some of the homebrew, take your favorite movie and go, how do I make this a story arc?
Yep. Which is why I'm working on making some heist things.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
God damn it, I love heist movies.
Yep. And if you can figure out a way to make Top Gun work, just do it. Just do it.
That's such a good idea.
I know it is, isn't it? I'm already working on it. Already working on
yep.
it.
Top crossbow. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's make it happen. Make it happen. Feel the need for speed.
All right. We are definitely at time and a little over. Because we love talking about weird shit and love getting off on tangents, as we do. Thank you for being around with us. Gilson, thank you for being with us in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's watching now live, who will be watching in the future. We post these on our YouTube channel every Saturday at noon, as long as I remember to.
Correct.
Which I've been mostly okay at for the past while. I mean, sometimes I wake up Saturday morning a little swifty and go very quickly to be like, no, do the thing. But I still get it done. That's been the last couple of weeks, not gonna lie. But yes, please go to our YouTube channel and watch, do all the internet things so we can get Twitch and YouTube Daddy's money.
Please.
So that I can get better internet so we're less choppy.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Good. Come and see us Saturday, June 6th.
5th.
June 5th. 5th. That's right.
5th.
The 5th. Let's see here. It's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
5th. That's the one.
Oops All Bards, baby.
Oops All Bards. It's going to be great. If you watch it, you'll have fun. Tell people to watch it. Make people come over to your place and watch it if they're vaccinated and if you're vaccinated.
Do so safely.
Do it safely.
Come into the chat or on our Facebook page and tell us about your random nonsense homebrews that you've made that you like.
Please do.
Like, if you post enough of them, maybe we'll do just a full episode on talking about your homebrews and whether we like them or not, which that would be
I would
fun.
love to. I would love to.
Even just because we know you're nerds like that, just tell us your stories of your characters, and because we love to read them and we will talk about them. But be warned, we may talk bad about them if
We
they're
might.
ridiculous.
Yes, and also be warned, we may steal some of it for our own campaigns.
Oh,
if
we're
they're good.
100% gonna see your characters are gonna become our NPCs.
100%, 100%, guaranteed.
Because theft, it's what we do.
Oh yeah.
But before we go off on other tangents, please, thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting, liking, and subscribing, and all that bullshit.
All good stuff. Yeah.
Because we want to get Twitch Daddy's money
Badly.
Come watch us for Oops All Bards on the 5th.
Please.
And we'll be back next week, Thursday, with another hour of us talking about random bullshit.
Some random thing. Who knows?
Bjorn, what do we always say?
Do something nice for yourself this weekend.
Gods, we're weird.